Welcome to History in Our Backyard, the Names of Places in Georgia podcast. My name is Naomi Fagan and I am a sophomore.
My name is Ashrita Batu. I am a junior.
My name is Aditi Kanolkar and I'm a junior.
My name is Sana Deshmukh and I'm a junior, and we're all students at Northview High School.
This podcast is produced by Leadership Johns Creek and Student Leadership North and funded in part by the Library of Congress Teaching with Primary Sources Eastern Region Program, coordinated by Waynesburg University and a Mercer University Office of the Provost Humanities Seed Grant. Thank you for your support.
Now, I'm pretty certain that we are all familiar with Lake Lanier, and more importantly, the haunted stories surrounding this body of water. However, buried underneath the murky waters, a vast history lies in the form of a place called Oscarville, a town that many consider to be the reason why this particular lake is haunted. A whole town of graves submerged underwater, waiting to be rediscovered. What happened to Oscarville? What was there even before them? And how does its story connect to the lake we know today? Stay with us as we uncover the forgotten stories of a town lost to time that still ripple through the lake's history.
First of all, almost everyone in Georgia is pretty familiar with Lake Lanier, as it's a pretty popular recreation spot. What a lot of people don't know is that it's actually the namesake of the famous Georgian poet, Sidney Lanier. Born in Macon, Georgia, Lanier spent his school days in this city and later attended Oglethorpe University, where he started writing poetry. He caught the eyes of the public once he published his poem, Song of the Chattahoochee, a rhythmic poem that personified the Chattahoochee River to imbue hope and renewal for the American South in the aftermath of the Civil War.
Wait, so I actually know a little bit about this guy. I looked into his poems a bit, and here's one important stanza from his poem, Song of the Chattahoochee, and it goes like this. High over the hills of Habersham, veiling the valleys of Hall, the hickory told me manifold, fair tales of shade, the poplar tall, wrought me her shadowy self to hold, the chestnut, the oak, the walnut, the pine, overleaning, with flickering meaning and sign, said, pass not so cold, these manifold, deep shades of hill of Habersham, these glades in the valleys of Hall. This stanza focuses on the dark side of Georgia's history, the battles of the Civil War that occurred in Georgia's dense forest. The Chattahoochee is personified and seems to be conversing with various trees like the poplar tall, the chestnut, the oak, the walnut, the pine, in the forest surrounding Habersham County. The trees want to tell the Chattahoochee the vast history of their forest by saying these manifold and how dark it was, especially during periods of war, by saying deep shades of the hills of Habersham. This detailed imagery is what popularized Lanier's writing. The emotions and stories he conveys through subtle references bring a whole new meaning to his work, which connects deeply with the people of Georgia, who have complex feelings about nature and the Civil War. Lanier's legacy continues to be celebrated today, especially through Lake Lanier, a reservoir named in his honor, which remains Georgia's largest lake.
Wait, but why even build such a big lake in the first place?
Around the time the lake was about to begin construction, in the 1950s, Atlanta was becoming a fast-growing metropolitan area. The New Deal, post-Great Depression, had brought about great urban advancements to the South, and Georgia was greatly benefiting from the establishment of electricity and better education in its rural regions. This was the exigence for Lake Lanier, as it served as a major water source for those living in Gwinnett County, as well as a means for flood control and electricity. However, the construction of the lake came at a cost beyond just financial expenses, as it also led to the displacement of hundreds of residents from Oscarville.
What exactly is the history behind Oscarville?
Well, it was a majority Black town established in the 1900s and located in Forsyth County, which is around 45 minutes north of Atlanta. It was relatively economically successful due to its community of laborers and carpenters, but it was still strife with racial tension due to past riots. The tension only became worse when white women began accusing Black men in the community of violent crimes against them. The white population of Oscarville grew increasingly outraged as more and more assault cases from white women accusing Black men were called in.
Yeah, a pretty well-known instance of this is when 3 black men who lived in Oscarville were arrested and executed for brutally assaulting a local white woman named Mae Crow.
Oh, yeah, that definitely resulted in an increased rate of lynchings and hate crimes towards Black people in the area, as well as a period of time in which Black people were actually displaced from their homes in Forsyth County in order to quote-unquote protect white women, and even spurred an informal ban on Black people in the area until the 1990s. Later, in 1950, once nearly all of the original constituents of color had left, Oscarville was flooded in order to construct Lake Lanier.
It's crazy that this area has such a long history of racial violence and discrimination, especially compared to how it's known now.
It actually goes even deeper than Oscarville. Even before this city, another group that suffered from racial discrimination is Native Americans. Indigenous tribes also inhabited cities in the area of Lake Lanier before Oscarville was established. From 1500 BC to 900 AD, the Woodland Native Americans lived in Forsyth County, and then the Mississippian Native Americans lived there from 900 AD to 1500 AD. It's believed that one of these groups made some of their mound, a landmark that is still visible when Lake Lanier's water levels are low. After the Mississippian Native Americans, the Muscogee Native Americans lived where Lake Lanier was built until 1764, when the Cherokee Native Americans took over the area. The Cherokee didn't stay here long, though, since their land was taken and redistributed in the 1830s, and their people either left for a new settlement or were taken to Fort Campbell, a stockade camp.
The land that the Cherokee Nation encompassed was actually sought after by the U.S. in order to accommodate growing populations throughout Metro Atlanta, and because gold was found in what is now known as modern Dahlonega. Recently, we talked to Miss Joan Compton, president of the Johns Creek Historical Society, and she explained how the Cherokee Nation had 2 major opinions about working with the U.S. government. One party was vehemently against any sort of territory negotiations, while the other party was more open to discussion. Then, in 1838, negotiations failed between the Cherokee Nation and the U.S. government, and the Cherokee tribe was forcefully displaced out of Georgia to Oklahoma, a part of a journey later named the Trail of Tears.
The Trail of Tears is pretty well known throughout America, especially since it had a devastating impact on indigenous communities throughout all of America, as tribes traveled thousands of miles by foot through treacherous terrain. Over 3,000 Cherokee died en route to eastern Oklahoma, the tribe's final destination. Discrimination against minority groups has been prevalent in Lake Lanier's history, even before Oscarville, yet it is rarely addressed when talking about the area.
You're right. Knowing about racial violence that both Black and Native American groups suffered through is so important while considering the creation of the lake. Stories like this are so important to keep alive so that the struggles of these minorities are not erased. Hey Aditi, remember Dr. Panther, an associate professor at Mercer University? Well, we interviewed her and she talked a lot about the information preservation techniques that she used to document the true history of Oscarville, making accessible tablets, publishing books, and these are just a few ways to publicize important regional history.
Information holding can also be for the community only. Dr. Panther told us about a family in Oscarville that actually chose to record their family history and keep it private because the information could be used in exploitative ways. I guess it just goes to show how important it is to keep this stuff in mind, whether the history is at our disposal or not.
Not only is Lake Lanier one of Georgia's most complex historical symbols, but along with the entangled history comes years of stories trying to explain the eeriness of the lake. Rooted behind the tragic history of the lake, there are several urban legends and accounts of people claiming to believe that the lake is haunted.
An article in the Atlanta 100 actually tells a pretty popular story that in 1958, Susie Roberts and Delia Young were found missing after losing control of their car while crossing the lake. After nearly 31 years after this concerning disappearance, the car of Roberts was found in the lake. Around a year after discovering the car, the body of Susie Roberts was found in the same blue dress that she was seen wearing 3 decades ago. Often called the Lady of the Lake, there are several urban legends saying that Susie Roberts haunts the lake and drags people down into the water. This case was just the beginning of disappearances surrounding the lake. Many other folklore range from claiming that the lake is haunted because the lake was created over many graves still left in Oscarville, or that residents nearby can still hear an underwater church bell still ringing underneath the water.
It definitely doesn't help that over 700 people have died at the lake since its creation. From the numerous accounts reported on social media of seeing ghosts surrounding the lake to urban legends about the hundreds of people gone missing, Lake Lanier is known for its haunting and unsettling reputation. But despite that, Lake Lanier still attracts around 10 million to 19 million tourists a year.
Going back to why the lake was originally constructed, the original purpose was to provide statewide hydroelectricity, regulate water flow along the Chattahoochee River, and be a water supply to the city of Atlanta. It quickly became a nationwide tourist attraction despite this. Lake Lanier has become a symbol tied to discussions surrounding racism, displacement, and the Confederacy in Georgia. It resides in areas that were once home to predominantly Black towns, such as Oscarville, before it was submerged and flooded with the people still living there. Its origin has contributed to the lake's reputation of being haunted and has also highlighted the displacement and erasure of marginalized communities. Our group decided to research Lake Lanier because it is crucial to be aware of the history surrounding landmarks in spite of and because of their problematic nature. This helps us understand how major historical places are connected to racial and social injustices.
Keeping the violent history of Lake Lanier in mind, we can still acknowledge it as a critical source of water, power, recreation, wildlife, and revenue. That is the sunken truth of Lake Lanier.
Thank you for listening to History in Our Backyard, the Names of Places in Georgia podcast. If you'd like more information about Student Leadership North, please visit our website at studentleadershipnorth.com. If you are interested in the Library of Congress's Teaching with Primary Sources program, visit their website at loc.gov. If you would like more information about Mercer University, please check out their website at mercer.edu. Thank you. We'd also like to thank Dr. Perota, Dr. Panther, Mr. Bonner, Ms. Compton, Ms. Johnson, and Ms. Cross-Harris for their guidance and expertise in creating this podcast.